This season saw a multitude of different storylines. We started the year hyping up the young drivers like Bubba Wallace, Daniel Suarez, Eric Jones, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott. Then pretty quickly we realized that it was the big threes year of Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, and Martin Truex Jr. Three of the best veterans, three former champions, dominated for the first 2/3 of this season. But then as the regular season wound down and the playoffs started, we saw a new crop of drivers. Some veterans, some young, some old. Chase Elliott turned into a superstar before our eyes. Team Penske rose to the occasion. And at the end of the day, after all was said and done, after many crazy playoff races, some new configurations of old tracks, Joey Logano is now sitting in victory lane as your Monster Energy Cup Series champion for the first time in his still fairly young NASCAR career. How's it going, everybody? My name is Eric and welcome once again to Out of the Groove, the show about racing where every week we talk all about the top news and notes around NASCAR, and today we are reacting to the Homestead finale, the final race of the season, and it was intense. And yes, I'm wearing all of my Matt Kenseth stuff because Matt Kenseth finished 6th in probably his last ever Cup Series race, and NBC didn't say a word, so I'm going to say everything myself. But as far as the race itself, I told you guys coming in that I thought the Championship 4 was going to run in the top 4, top 5 pretty much all night long, and that's exactly what we saw. Early on, it looked like Kyle Larson, as usual at Homestead, was the top outside playoff contender to win the race. He led laps, looked really fast. Eventually, he did himself in by running into the wall. You had a few other drivers. Hamlin occasionally showed some speed, maybe Almirola, Chase Elliott. Matt Kenseth briefly looked like he maybe had top 5 speed. But for the most part, it was Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Martin Truex Jr., and Joey Logano running in the top 4, top 5. 70, 80, 90% of the race. My pick coming in was Kyle Busch. He was probably the worst of the 4 Championship 4 drivers, especially as the night went on. They could not get ahead of adjustments with that 18 car. He ended up finishing 4th of the 4 Championship drivers. I was surprised. I thought, that team has been good at mile and a halves for most of the season. They've been really, really good at mile and a halves, especially consistent. And I guess they continue to be consistent tonight. 4th place is a good finish most nights, not when you're racing for the championship at Homestead. Kevin Harvick seemed to kind of be the favorite among most people that I would hear from or talk to. A lot of people thought Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch were the top 2 coming into this race. He finished 3rd, and other than early in the race, I feel kind of like Kyle Busch. As the night went on, his car got worse as well, but not as bad as Busch's. He was still competitive, midway towards the end of the race. But still disappointing and surprising to me that the 2 drivers with 8 wins this year, guys who've consistently been the top 2 drivers of the sport for most of the season, were the 2 worst performers of the Championship 4. I thought that was very surprising. Obviously, I did not see that coming, and it sounds like a lot of other people didn't see that coming, so there was a lot of things like that about tonight's race that really kept me on my toes, kept me interested, because the race itself, it wasn't flashy. A lot of good battles for the lead, and it was really fun having all the Championship 4 near the front, pretty much the entire race long. But there wasn't, very many cautions, not a lot of wrecks, nothing super flashy, no big spectacles really, no pit road drama more or less, a few slow stops here and there, but nothing like no big penalties, no fires on pit road, so it was a pretty low-key, pretty average race, but I still had a lot of fun. Martin Truex Jr., remember he won this race last year, won the championship a year ago. This is the final race for Furniture Row Racing in that 78 team before they close up shop, and Truex and his crew chief Cole Pearn jump ship over to JGR for the 19 car next year. Wouldn't it have been great for them to go out in style? For a while it looked like they would. They seem to have maybe the best long-run car of the 4, especially late in the race. Unfortunately, however, after that late race caution and the restart with about 15 laps to go, the race didn't end with a long run. On that final run, Logano was able to jump in front of him, and at that point, Truex his car never came in. Honestly, I kept waiting for Truex's car to come in a little bit, maybe start to even off lap times, and maybe eventually start gaining on him, but during that whole and final 10, 15, 20 lap run, Truex was just consistently fading. It felt like on those last pit stops, which is something I want to talk about in a minute, those last pit stops there with, I think it was less than 20 laps to go, really, that's what I think won the championship for Joey Logano. Because yes, Joey Logano, he was the one guy in this Final 4 who had never won a championship before. He got it done, so now we have a bunch of guys in the Cup Series with 1 championship. Next year is going to be crazy. But Joey Logano was the surprise of the weekend. He'd been running well as of late. He's been one of the most consistent drivers, has the 3rd best average finish of all drivers this season. And in the playoffs especially, he won that race at Martinsville. He ran well at Texas, I think he finished 3rd in that race and had the only legal car that we know of in the top 5. They've been running well lately, but I still feel like he flew under a lot of people's radars. I think most people still picked him to be maybe the 3rd or 4th best competitor this weekend. I don't think anybody had them as their favorite. I mean, very few people at least did. And then practice on Friday and qualifying, he looked good, but he didn't look like noticeably better. Final practice on Saturday, he seemed to have a pretty good long run car. He seemed to have a car that got better didn't have very much fall off on the tires when compared to others. So I think after Saturday night, I think a lot of people finally were starting to look at Joey Logano as maybe the top guy to beat. And he showed that speed in the race here today. I mean, he was consistently in the top 3, led a lot of laps. He was okay early in the race, but really as as the sun went down, as the track got cooler, that car really rose up to the occasion. It was clearly the strongest car, I think, maybe overall this entire weekend. And, that just is the way it is sometimes. A lot of fans, especially after yesterday's Xfinity race, have been critiquing the playoff format. It doesn't crown real champions. After Tyler Reddick won the Xfinity Championship yesterday, ahead of guys like Christopher Bell, who'd won 7 races this year, people are questioning the legitimacy of this playoff format, whether it crowns the real champion. I think as far as the Cup Series side is concerned, I don't see how you can be that upset with Logano winning the championship. You can't say that he didn't earn it. Like I said earlier, that team has the 3rd best average finish this year. They're just a scotch off of what Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch had put up. And I've been talking about this for a while now, but Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch especially have not been nearly as dominant the last 3 months. Throughout the beginning of the season, Harvick was dominant. Throughout the rest of the spring and summer, Kyle Busch was probably equally as dominant. But since July, August, they have not been dominant by any stretch of the imagination. Brad Keselowski, a Team Penske driver, which is the same team Logano drives for, won 3 straight races at the end of the regular season. Joey Logano showed that those Fords had speed when he won at Talladega earlier this year, continued to be consistent throughout the summer months, something that very few other playoff drivers have been able to do all season. I've talked about this during the playoffs. Eric Almirola slumped over the summer. He turned it on for the playoffs, made it to the round of 8, but he was slumping over the summer. That's why he's not a championship driver this year. Chase Elliott, I know he turned it on at the end of the summer, winning at Watkins Glen, then in the playoffs, winning at Dover, winning at Kansas. But at the beginning of the season, he slumped. You can't have just like a half good season if you're going to win the championship. And that's what Joey Logano proved here today. He hasn't been like lightning quick very much this year. He has 3 wins, which is nothing to blow off. But since Daytona in February, they've consistently been a top 5 car, just sneaking under the radar, top 5, top 5, top 5, top 10, top 5, top 10. Basically since from February all the way here to November. There's really never been a month where Joey Logano has just been bad. And I get it, you could say the same about Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick. They haven't really been bad at any point this year, but all those wins that we've been raving about, they're 8 wins apiece, most of those came in the early half of the season. Since August, Kevin Harvick has 2 wins. One of them at Texas was ruled illegal. And also since August, Kyle Busch only has 2 wins. And then that other big 3 driver, Martin Truex, 0 wins. Logano has 2 wins as well and has more consistent finishes. People can continue to debate the legitimacy of this playoff format, whether or not you like it or not. I love it. I'm sold on it right now. The only thing I want them to change is the win and you're in for the regular season. That should not exist. Austin Dillon should not have been locked into the playoffs after 1 race this year. But besides that, as far as the final 10 race stretch goes, I think it's great. They could make tweaks if they want to. I couldn't care less, but I'm definitely not. You're not going to find me criticizing the current playoff format the way it is. It's been great. I think now 5 years they've done it, and 5 years now I have not been angry about who the champion's been. Was Joey Logano the most deserving driver all season long? Probably not. I mean, yeah, Kyle Busch had 8 wins and a better average finish. Yeah, he's probably the more deserving driver year long. But when push comes to shove, we went to Homestead, a 1.5-mile track that all these teams have been to before. They've all raced at before. All these drivers have experienced that. And who was the best driver, best car? Joey Logano. That's why he's the champion. That's why I don't have a problem with it. And that's why we should be celebrating it and give him his deserved congratulations. That's all I have. I'll have another video up in a day or 2, probably to talk a little bit more about this season as a whole, because I definitely want to do that. I want to talk a little bit more about this race. But yeah, congratulations to Joey Logano. His first ever Cup Series championship in, what is this? Is this his 10th? Full-time season? Yeah, his rookie year was 2009. So yeah, 10th full-time season, and he finally has himself his first championship. He's only, 28 years old, I think? Could be the start of something special, that's for sure, especially if he sticks with a powerhouse like Team Penske. What I think this playoff race really shows is that Joe Gibbs Racing is no longer the best team in NASCAR. And I think this also shows that the drivers that you have on your team mean a lot to your team's total success. Look at SHR this year. No offense to Danica, but they replaced Danica Patrick with an established stock car veteran driver, Eric Almirola. They've been the best team in NASCAR as a unit this year. You look at Joe Gibbs Racing, they got rid of a champion, Matt Kenseth, and replaced him with Eric Jones. Eric Jones isn't bad, but he's not a champion. He's still young, not going to bring that much new data to the table. And guess what? Joe Gibbs Racing wasn't the best team in NASCAR this year. They only had 1 car make it past the first round of the playoffs. You look at Team Penske, they added a car this year. Ryan Blaney, one of the best, one of the most talented young drivers in the sport. Look, they just won the championship. Hendrick Motorsports got rid of Casey Kane, Dale Jr., a couple successful veterans, and replaced them with young guys. Hendrick Motorsports had their worst year as a team in over a decade. So that's all I'm saying. I think it's a good time to be a Penske fan. You got 3 good, relatively young drivers in your system, and you're already winning a championship? Team Penske's a powerhouse can I say they're on the rise? I mean, they're already basically here, but I think they're going to rise even higher. NASCAR is a lot about the team, a lot about the car, but the drivers do a lot behind the scenes that affects performance. And I think this year absolutely proves it 100%, showed it off, put it on full display for everyone to see. And speaking of that, you put Matt Kenseth, the veteran, in that 6 car. You take him away from Joe Gibbs Racing and you put him in a terrible 6 car, and he finishes 6th in the final race of his career. He beat 3 of those Gibbs cars that I was just talking about. In the 6th car. Anyway, y'all, I'm hyped. This was a great race. Seeing Matt Kenseth run well as a big fan of his in his final career race almost brought tears to my eyes. Not quite. I cried when he won Phoenix last year. I didn't quite get there this year, but it'll sink in at some point what he did here tonight. But of course, the spotlight should be on Joey Logano. Congrats to Joey Logano on winning his first ever Cup championship. Could be a few more down the pipeline for him going forward. But thanks everyone for watching this episode of Out of the Groove. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, as always. And big shout out, of course, to our Patreon supporters like Michael Harrison, Tice Moore, and Cameron James. Yeah, there they are. Wow, they're just popping up all over the place. Thank you so much to our Patreon supporters. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for the support. More Out of the Groove coming during the off season. I know the off season is here, and you guys think that this show's gonna be like, oh, taking a couple months off. That couldn't be further from the truth. I got at least 2 more episodes planned for this week that I'm excited about, and hopefully you guys are too. I got a lot of fun stuff planned for this channel over the off-season winter months, so there's no reason to go anywhere. Thanks everyone for watching. It's been a great finale. Had a lot of fun watching it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed as well, and I'll see you guys in a couple days. Bye, y'all.